budget cuts. Let's talk a little bit about that. Are you
Yes.
concerned about the timeline?
Yeah, I remain a little bit concerned. I had a number of concerns, as you all know, on Saturday with the way that the motion was written and the way that it was being interpreted. So there was a lot of work over the weekend, and then I listened very closely to the debate today to really understand how people were interpreting the direction going forward. And I was given a lot of comfort by three things. The first is the guidelines that Councillor Sutherland brought forward, I think, are very, very helpful, because I was really worried that with such a short period of time, you would end up with crazy lobbying for save this program, cut this program, and we would end up in a really bad place at council. And so I was happy to hear. So number two, that members of council said, listen, we have to accept what administration brings forward. We can't have our cake and eat it too by saying have these budget cuts, but then fighting against or lobbying for different cuts. And then number three was really when I heard from administration that there are things they can look at that won't double the amount of the budget cut because we're halfway through the fiscal year. So make no mistake, this is not fun. This means we're cutting 5% of our remaining budget for 2019 in just over 4 weeks' time. It's going to be very, very difficult. But we really have to rely on our administration to make the right choices. And quite frankly, my council colleagues really have to not lobby for or against certain programs and just let administration do their job, which is not normally how we operate.
Is this giving too much control to administration, though?
I mean, yes it is. I think that great governance would really have us do line-by-line audits of the budget as we do every November. I like that. I'm one of the few who does. But I also understand Council's desire to move expeditiously on this, and given that, the only way to do it is to cede that control.
What about the decision that was made even earlier this morning to make that tax cut on the commercial side? What is going to be the impact of that?
So what it should mean is that for the vast majority of businesses, with a few exceptions, the worst they will see is 10% less than they paid last year, excluding the effects of business tax consolidation, but they should be at a 10% cut or better.
And what about in terms of, sorry, I've completely blanked, so someone else.
So about that, we're leaving it up to the landlords again, and there's no other way to ensure that that gets passed down?
That's exactly why Council had concerns with the tax program this year. Otherwise, we would have just done this in November, to be frank. The Council really wanted to see if there was a better option than that, because we have heard from some small businesses that it's just not clear. I'm not sure it's so much a case of the landlords are not passing it through, but that the businesses are not seeing that because it's absorbed in their operating cost in their lease. And so we're going to have to really do a much better job than we've done in the past of explaining to, particularly to tenants, what has happened.
I'm still not clear what happens if administration comes back with something. What's to prevent administration from coming back and saying, let's cut $20 million out of the police budget or take $5 million out of the Calgary Zoo, like something that would result in a lot of citizen complaints?
Their professionalism. And the reason I'm pausing is because of the numbers you mentioned.
Hypothetical?
Well, the zoo one is hypothetical, but certainly if you were to do it on a size of the business unit across the board cut perspective, the police one that you mentioned is not actually all that hypothetical. It's not that far from what the police's portion of 60 million would be. It is far, but it's not that far. So, these are the tough choices the council's going to have to make. And I trust administration very much that they're not going to come up with something explosive just to say I told you so, because we actually have to live with the results of those cuts. But I also trust my council colleagues that they're not going to back out.
A number of your council colleagues have singled you out for criticism in terms of leadership or a lack of leadership in terms of the situation the council found itself in today. How do you take that?
I don't really care about politics. I never have. I care about what the right answer is, and I don't care who wrote the right answer. I mean, it's important to note that one of the reasons we're in this position is frankly because I did something other mayors wouldn't do, which is I really involved council in the problem solving. There were many points at which there was a clear majority of council that would have just voted to go with one of the many plans that I had promoted to them. And each time, instead of saying approve this plan, I said approve the next steps in this plan. So, I heard one of my council colleagues say I was really pushing this grant thing. Actually, council voted 10-5 or 9-6 to explore the grant. And quite frankly, if I'd been a jerk about it, I would have just changed that motion to approve the grant and had a 10-5 or 9-6 vote on that. But council really wanted to see the details, and that's really how I've managed this through the whole thing.
What impact do you think the business owners being outside the building and then in chambers this morning had on the discussion this afternoon?
It was good. For me, it was good. It was good to, I've heard all of this, but it was good to hear it in person in council chamber. It was as good to see how people were dedicated and devoted to coming to council chambers. And, I think that's an important thing because, council needed a little bit of a shock to be able to come together. And you heard many members of council say that, we were letting the perfect be the enemy of the good. You've heard me say that before. And I think that all of that pressure really allowed council to say, look, we got to do something, even if it's not precisely what I would have wanted. Same with me. It's not precisely what I would have wanted, but it certainly moved the ball down the field.
Can you just remind us where we're at in terms of doing a longer term fix on this? Because there's a couple of different...
I need to do some math based on what we approved today. Most people define the longer term fix as going to a 50-50 split between residential and non-residential, which we should do. And certainly one of the plans I proposed to council got us there by 2022. But I have to remind you that fixing that and getting to 50-50 actually will not solve the individual problems for individual businesses if we have another year when the downtown falls. So that's the important thing to remember about all of this, is that way back in 15-16, we thought the downtown would fall once and then maintain itself at the lower level, which is why the first PTP, it stands for Phase Tax Program, was really to help people adjust to that new normal. It wasn't that we thought the downtown would recover right away, it's that we thought it would stabilize. And in fact, it didn't stabilize. It went further down the following year and further down the following year, which is what really caused a lot of the problem that we've got. I don't think that's going to happen again. Most real estate folks tell me we really are at the bottom and we've stabilized. If it does happen again, then getting to a 50-50 doesn't actually solve the problem.
But in terms of, there's a working group that's bringing a report back in the fall, or...
Ish.
Yeah. And then is there a second group too that's looking at something?
Yeah, so last week at Priorities and Finance Committee, we set up 2 expert groups. One is made up of members of council and external experts, and it's to solve short-term issues. And then one is a broader financial task force to help our CFO look at some of the structural issues, and that'll be made up of external experts in the community.
Okay.
What kinds of powers do you think we need from the province, or changes do we need from the province to address this?
Well, 2 things. Number one is it was badly mischaracterized that council was asking the province to bail us out. What we were saying is, we're lowering our portion of the business tax. Will you lower your portion as well? Which I think is a totally reasonable thing to ask. But I don't think they'll do that in the next budget. Let's see. But what we really need to do is we need to have a good conversation around our taxing authorities under the Municipal Government Act. In fact, the provincial government has tabled legislation to change those a little bit. So certainly there's an opportunity right now for that conversation.
Is it creating new subclasses in the non-residential assessment?
Well, if we're going to get really technical, I believe that creating new subclasses, small businesses v. larger businesses, is a really good solution. That already exists in the regulation, but the way it's written now just doesn't work. And it's not going to work. It's in the MGA, I think, but it's just not going to work. We had that presentation at PFC last week saying just the language and the way it's written, Market Mall would be considered a small business. And that's not really what we're trying to do here.
Is the notion of a limit on how far assessment work taxes can fall, is that now dead?
Yeah, it's pretty dead. We had a legal opinion on that really said that's not going to work, but it might well be one of the conversations we want to have with the province.
So if the value of the buildings over here has hit bottom, what kind of situation then do you have for next year? Is it an exact repeat of this year or not?
It means that the taxes that people saw this year prior to the rebate would be the maximum of what they'd see in the future, depending on what else council has to do. But man, that is a mug's game. We just will not know that until quite late this year as we see our assessment numbers come in. Now that said, the thing that we forget about in this whole conversation is that a lot of this was caused just by 2 or 3 buildings. being sold really at fire sale prices. I haven't heard of any such sales this year, but I can't say that I follow the gazette of every real estate sale in Calgary that closely.
When
Okay.
will you be meeting with Premier Kenny on this and many other issues?
Oh, Premier Kenny reached out to me about 10 days ago asking for a good long meeting. And it's just a matter of figuring out our schedules. He's traveling, I'm traveling, but I hope to have that happen real quick.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.